We've attempted to put together a video of the pictures to represent our 50 years of marriage. We're not professionals, but we've enjoyed doing this and looking back over the years. Reed graduated in 1944 from Lebanon High School. This is his graduation picture. Reed was in high school the last year when his dad died when he was a senior, and left he and his mother to care for the farm. He graduated from Lebanon High School in 1944. The mascot for the Lebanon school was the Broncos, and that's Reed down in front. This is a picture of his family, his brother Burl and sister Gwen and mother and dad, and Reed down in the front. This is a picture of Reed out in front of their farmhouse down, it was north of Lebanon, Kansas. This is where he was born and lived then until after we were married. Reed was real active in school projects. This was, he took first in FFA. He did a lot of projects with, he and with one of those heifers that he had out on the farm there. He did build a hog house, and here's a picture when he was younger, the steel-wheeled John Deere tractor. And that was the time then that he, after that, he did a lot of the farming with that tractor. And then he bought a corn picker. He was really proud of that. And then that was when they started putting the rubber tires on the tractors then. This was the 1946 36 Ford that he drove. We found out that his farm, if we went straight down across country, was only about 12 miles from where I lived with my folks. But we had to go around through Red Cloud because of the roads. And so we both lived on the farm, but it made him about 25 miles to have to drive. This took a lot of time, and if the roads were bad and it had rained, why then it was impossible, of course, for him to come up. We usually went together to do something about once a week. Sometimes I wouldn't know whether he was coming or not if it had rained and maybe it hadn't rained at our place. And this was the farm out south of Innavale where I think I was 2 years old when we moved there. And this was the folks, my family. This is myself on the left, and then Kenneth, and then Rachel and Mary Louise, and down in front was Dad and our little sister Sharon, and then my mother, and then our brother Don was the oldest of the family. We lived out on that farm until I was 16, and then the folks did move to town then. I know the boys walked or rode a horse to Innavale to school. We walked to the school in down south of us for District 70. This was my graduation. I graduated in 1947, and we did go. We met at a youth camp, and the way we got there was riding in the back of just a farm truck, and it was just open top. And they would pick us up at different places. Reed got on in Red Cloud, and then they stopped through Innavale, and I went, and it was up by Lexington. And we met. That was the first time then that we had been to anything together there that I even knew he existed. His mother felt like that he had been out on the farm there alone, and she thought it would be a good chance for him to meet some other young people. Of course, I was glad that he did go. While we were at camp, a lot of the boys played a lot of tennis up there. He liked tennis, but most of all we played softball. And that was where then this was the way we washed the dishes. They just had tubs out there. Probably wasn't all that sanitary, but everybody washed their own dishes and dried them, and I guess we took them back to our cabin. I don't remember that. But we were playing ball, and Reed put me out on first base, and then asked somebody who who I was. He said, "Who was that little chubby girl?" But I was a little bit younger than he. Then in 1947, after Rachel and Walter were married, why then she was the camp nurse. And this is Rachel and I out at the camp there. We teased them, of course, about being married and not getting to stay together in the cabins. After Reed and I met at camp, why we decided we would write back and forth, and so the letters began to fly. We would just first was just kind of get acquainted, and our mailman, Goob Leonard, would bring the letters and put them in our mailbox, and he would write a little thing on the back. He thought that was funny, because he knew it was a letter from Reed. So I'd walk up to the mailbox to get the mail. Then he decided it was time that I go and see where he lived and meet his mother. And so he picked me up one Sunday, and we went down to his mother's house, to their house, and I'm sure I was a little nervous about that. In high school, that was one of my Red Cloud High School Warrior shirts, and I didn't get to attend too many of the games because I would come to school at Red Cloud on Monday, and then on Friday night I would go home, and so the ball games were usually on Friday night, and I didn't get to stay in town much. My dad usually had something for me to do. This is the car, 1929 Model A Ford Roadster, that I drove to school in Red Cloud from my parents' farm until we moved into Innervale. This car we kept in the family, and Don drove it. I think they drove it on some long trips. And then Don, I think, drove it to Hastings one time and traded it off, and I think Dad said he wanted it back, and I think he come to Hastings and paid a little more money for it and bought it back again. In 1947, in August, why Rachel and Walter were married, and Reed and I stood up with them as for their witnesses. And this is Reed and I there at Innervale in front of the little church building there. We were proud to get to go to their 50th wedding anniversary last summer. This is a credit card. This is the first credit card that I ever had to use. I bought some Wherever cookware, and I really enjoyed that cookware for many years. It was a set that I paid $61 for, and the payments were $7, and I thought that was a lot of money. But I wanted to buy something, and I was working at the meat market. So then when we decided to marry, I wanted to make my own wedding dress. And so we came to Hastings and bought the material. I think the satin was $13 and the pattern was 50 cents. And I got busy to make my wedding dress then. We set our date for March the 21st, the first day of spring in 1948. So this was going to be a happy time for in the spring. This was the announcement we had made up. And this is the little church building in Innervale where we were married. This was the same building that Rachel and Walter were married at. And my folks, my dad made a little white picket fence to put across the front of the building, and Grandma Atkinson made some artificial flowers to twine around it. And my bouquet was the red roses and the calla lilies. This just shows another picture in the front of the building there. Everybody was so helpful. We really appreciated everybody. And this was after the wedding. Then we walked over to my folks. It was only a couple of blocks. And this was out on the front walk there. And they were preparing for us a reception. This shows some of the cars there that were parked along there. And then my mother and Aunt Winnie and the ladies from church helped to put on such a beautiful reception for us, and beautiful cake and a good time there. Shows one of our napkins. This was a happy time for all of us, and some of the people that were trying to come from the country. It was almost that Sunday evening, after our wedding and the reception, we left for our honeymoon trip to Hastings, Lincoln, and Beatrice. It was farming time, and Reed didn't feel like that he could be gone long. The first night we stayed at the Carter Hotel here in Hastings at $4.50 a night. It was advertised as Hastings' only hotel and with air-conditioned guest rooms. That hotel now is the Reveille Theater. Then we went on to Lincoln, and we stayed at the Capitol Hotel. That was $5.50 a night. We toured the Capitol there and other places, and enjoyed staying there in Lincoln. On Wednesday night, the next night, we stayed at the Paddock Hotel in Beatrice for $5 a night. This was a big trip for us. We didn't have much time and we didn't have much money, so we went light. Then we headed for home. We stopped by my parents in Innervale for some of our gifts and went on to our first home in Kansas. This was the house that was about 9 miles north of Lebanon, and this was where Reed had been living. Now we're farmers. This is Reed in his overalls. And we're gardening, and he's getting the crops in. And this is me in my work pants. And our first big project was getting little chickens. We bought baby chickens, and were really cute. We really enjoyed being out on the farm, and we had good luck with those chickens. This is myself out on the front, out on the back step with a little puppy, a new puppy that we had. We enjoyed going into Innervale and visiting the family. And this was another car that we got a 1941 four-door Chevy, and we thought this was really great. Lots of times we would go maybe to Red Cloud and visit Grandpa Fitz there and Aunt Effie. These are just some pictures of us on Sunday afternoon, probably, out in the yard. Then we decided that in the fall we would go and take a trip to the mountains. And so we took a tent and we tried to tent camp. And then we went to one of his uncles up in Fort Collins, and then went on up into Boulder, up where Mary Louise and Percy and the family was living, up above Boulder, Colorado. Had a good time there. Then we decided in 1949 we moved to a farm in Nebraska. My parents had moved into town, and they had bought this farm 4.5 miles south of Innervale. It was an old farmhouse that Reed and my dad completely remodeled. They put in a bathroom and built a new kitchen, and it was made up really nice. This was an old garage that had set out in the front there, and so we were tearing that down. Reed had his tractor then. Of course, by then he had a tractor that had rubber wheels and a loader on the front, which he really enjoyed. Then, and this was a mailbox that he fixed out there on the farm. He welded one of his old log chains into making a carrier, a holder for it. And that was in one of the rural papers one time as kind of a unique thing. This was when they were building on to the east side of the house there and making it into a kitchen. And then they just were starting to build a new garage, which was really a nice building there. We really enjoyed having that garage. And then they got the doors on it, and Reed was painting it there. That was one of the farm dogs that we had. Sometimes I think people think we didn't enjoy the dogs, but we did on the farm. We enjoyed having the dogs. Reed was out shucking corn. He could do pretty good by hand, of course. There he was probably picking up. Then in April the 26th, 1950, our first baby, Vicki Ruth, was born at the Matern Hospital in Red Cloud. She loved to get outside and liked to feed the chickens. We had a little red wagon that I'd haul her around in, and we'd go out and help Reed to do the chores. So she enjoyed being outside. We decided in 1953 the farm our crops had dried up and the cattle prices had dropped down and there wasn't enough ground, and so we had a farm sale, September the 24th, 1953. And this was a sad time for me. I hated for us to have to leave the farm. And then in 1953, the fall of November the 22nd, our first son, Barry Reed, was born. And this was Vicki welcoming him to our family. Barry was born, or Paul, that was when Barry was little. And then this is Paul. When Paul was born, July the 19th, our third child, Paul Howard, was born. This was Vicki holding him and Barry there, welcoming him to our family. And this was Paul then when he was about 6 months old. And Reed was working at the lumber yard in Nineveh then. And he needed to use his accounting ability, and so we decided that we should move to Hastings. And so with the help of our sister-in-law, Madeline Fitz, he found a job as a bookkeeper at the Hastings Motor Truck. And then he knew that he would be able to have a job in about a year at the Production Credit Association in Hastings here. And there he worked for 28 years at the Production Credit. This was a picture of Reed in the office, and then they built the new building out south of Hastings here. And that was where they were working when he retired then. This is our family in 1958. This was myself, and then Vicki, and Paul was the little one, and Barry standing on the right there. And then in the summer of 1958, we were building our first new home, and this was out at 2309 Boyce. And this was when there was no other houses out there at all. Our loan was for $10,300. The Westland Builders built the part of it, and then we did all the finishing and the yard work. And this is a picture of it then and the kids out in front after we got it finished and moved in there. And this was in our new kitchen. This was Paul and Barry over there in the corner, and Vicki. And and this was Thanksgiving. No, let's see, December. This was Christmas time then when my folks come up and we had Christmas dinner in our new home. Then June the 5th, 1959, Jerry was born, our fourth child, Jerry Lynn, at Mary Lanning Hospital. And then this was a family picture, Vicki and Reed and I, and then Paul and Barry and Jerry in front here. That was our family then. Oh, then in the summer, we would go down to the farm down where Don and Winnie lived. It would have been south of Red Cloud. And this was the old water wagon that was up on the hill, and the boys would get up on that, and I'm sure they shot many a robber from there. We really enjoyed, and they still had an outhouse. And we kind of laughed after Donna came along then and got to be 2 or 3 or 4 years old. She didn't want to have to go out there because she was afraid she would fall. But we thought it was very unique to for them to still have the outhouse. And then they got running water in the bathroom and everything then in their house later. This was up south of where they lived. We would hike up there where this old windmill was, and I did a painting off of this picture that was in the summertime. We was down there in the fall. And then here was our fifth child, 1964. Donna Sue was born April the 28th at the Mary Lanning Hospital. Vicki was 14 and thrilled to hear that we had another girl in the family after 3 boys. Vicki was such a big help. And then we decided that we needed a little more room, and so in 1964, then we were building the big house at the corner of 9th and Williams, and that's the way it looks even now. We built it at the cost of $17,000 and sold it, and sold our house out on Boyce for about $13,000, and we worked at that hard there. That was a picture of my mother that would come up and stay with Donna when she was little while we were working on the house. And this is our family. There was Donna there in front, and Paul and the rest of them. And then in 1969, my mother died suddenly. My dad had died some years earlier, and after their house in Innervale sold, we decided to invest our share in a lot up at the Amix Acres. And then we began to build a cabin there, and the boys helped. They dug the septic tank hole by hand and everything they could by hand. This was a plow that we got at Don's farm sale. I thought it was one of the original plows that maybe my dad had used, but we're not sure on that. But I have that up at the cabin there. And then this is the cabin, and Eller's up there enjoying it. Now then, the third generation. Here's Philip fishing. Here's Grandpa showing Elizabeth the feel of a fishing rod. And here's some of the kids out boating, and also they love to swim there. In '73, we celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary. Vicki had made this special reception for us. And the beautiful wedding cake was made by Detta Wright, our dear friend. Our family was getting smaller and smaller, and Vicki was 26, and our family was getting smaller and smaller. Jerry and Mary were going to be getting married, and the rest had left. It would just be Donna and Reed and I, and we had had some health problems, and so we decided to move to build here at 838 Williams, where we presently live. Okay. And this is Reed and I standing out in front before the brick was put on. Okay. And then the house is finished. Okay. Our kids started graduating from high school. Vicki graduated in '68. Okay. Barry in '72. Okay. Paul in '73. Okay. Jerry in '77. Okay. Donna in 1982, okay, and then our foster daughter that had come to live with us, Donna Freeland, and her name is Uden now. She graduated in 1988, okay. We celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary in March of 1973. This is our family, the boys and us, Paul and Jerry and Reed and I and Barry. Okay. This is Jerry and Barry. They thought it was really funny that they could put their arms up on the shoulders of their father. They're growing up. Okay. And Vicki and little sister Donna. Donna was always so tickled to have Vicki at home and around. Okay. The beautiful wedding cake was made by Detta Wright, our dear friend. Okay. Then in 1988, we celebrated our 40th wedding anniversary, and it was hosted by Mary and Lila. They did a great reception for us in the basement of the church building. Okay. This is Jennifer and I think Jacob helping us there to open up a gift. Okay. This is Reed and I with the grandchildren that were there at that time. Some couldn't be there. This is Carrie, and then in the back is Jennifer and Alan and Jacob, and then Megan down to the front, my grandpa. Okay. The two little girls, Megan and Carrie. They were so sweet. Okay. And those two handsome boys, Alan and Jacob, in their suits. Okay. And some of the people at our reception, you might recognize yourself there. Some of the church people there at the basement. Okay. I see several that I recognize and think others would recognize. It was such a great time. Okay, our kids have grown up now. Here's a picture of the 5 of them. Okay. And then here's a picture also of the kids when they were all home together, Reed and I. Okay. Okay, then in the 70s and 80s, we were really busy with weddings. Okay, 1974, Vicki and Ed Terhune were married. Okay. 1977, Paul and Lila Voditska was married in Exeter, Nebraska. Okay. In 1978, Jerry and Mary Maxon were married. There's the church building. Okay. In 1981, Barry and Marlene Amell was married in Riverton, Wyoming. Okay. In 1989, Donna and Ernest Montemayor were married in Lubbock, Texas. Okay. And in 1990, Donna and Dave Uden, our foster daughter Donna and Dave Uden, were married here in Hastings. As the years went by, the grandchildren began to arrive. These were happy times and our happy times. Reed and I with grandkids. Okay, and then Christmas, the baby there was Jessie. Okay. And then Philip, or James in this picture, okay. Philip, the football player, they were living in, I think, Tennessee. Okay. And then the birthday party. There's Lila. She was helping with the milk there. I think that's Carrie and Megan. And okay. And Aunt Vicki. I was at their house. This happened to be a birthday party for Philip. Jennifer, okay. And there's Mary. There's Philip and the kids. Busy times trying to keep everybody's birthday celebrated. Okay. This was the grandchildren then. At the time that Reed was having heart bypass surgery. Okay. And then on Christmas Eve, he was home, and we all got to be together to celebrate his homecoming.
Okay.
Okay, this is 1998 now, and the new pictures of the grandkids that we got for Christmas, and we're putting this video together. This is James. He's our oldest grandson. He's graduating from high school this spring. Okay. And then Philip, his brother Philip. These are James and Philip Terhune. They live in Valparaiso, or not really Valparaiso. Their home is in North Judson, Indiana. Okay, then we have Jennifer and Alan and Carrie. This is Paul's children. Okay, then we have Jacob. Okay, and Megan. This is Jerry's children. We have Jessica. She is Barry and Marlene's daughter. They live at Cheyenne, Wyoming. And we have Sarah Uden, Donna Uden, and Dave Uden's daughter. And then we have Elizabeth Montemayor. She's our youngest of the 10 grandchildren. We enjoy all the children and the grandchildren being close or coming to visit us, and we're thankful to have so many friends and loved ones around us, and we are glad that we can have this 50th anniversary now together.
Centers around our association with our church family at 12th and Laird. Our sincere thanks and love to you, our family, our church family, and many dear friends, not only for joining us today to celebrate our 50th wedding anniversary, but for being a cherished part of our lives through good times and the challenging times. May God continue to grant his many blessings for each and every one of us.